Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A Theater Near You. My name is Kris Randazzo, and I'm joined this evening, as always, by mafioso baseball enthusiast Paul Giroux.
I want you to find this Nancy boy Elliot Ness. I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burned to the ground. I want to go there in the middle of the night. I want to piss on his ashes.
And Irish bullet sponge Sean Doyle.
Just like a silly dago to bring a knife to a gunfight. Yeah, that's right. I'm just opening it up with racism. Okay.
This month's letter was you, and we went with Paul's pick, The Untouchables. Was Prohibition a good idea? Let's find out.
No.
How's it going, guys?
Podcast over. Bad idea.
Yeah, I think that's been solved for us.
Very much so. How are you gentlemen doing, huh?
Oh, you know.
I think that size says it all. I think that's how we're doing.
Yeah. You know what's not? You know what doesn't suck is movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should talk about movies because that'll make us feel better.
So I got a side tangent that's tangentially related. That's bringing me a slight bit of joy as of late.
I love slight bits of joy. Bring it.
Do
Pour
it
it on me.
I randomly decided to start watching every sitcom from a given year because, like, I'd watched all the sitcoms that I thought I wanted to watch. Like, pandemic's really given me some downtime, and then, like, while I'm working, I put the TV on in the background. So, like, I've gone through The Office like 4 or 5 times at this point. It's a brilliant show, and it's great to have on in the background. I also went back through and watched Night Court. I spoke about that on here and how much I love that, and I do love the new series. I think they're doing a great job. Again, I think the writing could step it up a notch on the jokes. But as far as everything else, like the feel of it, the pacing, I feel like they really nailed that new Night Court really well. Again, to the writers, just punch it up a little bit. So I just randomly picked 1991 for no other reason than, I don't know, that's a year, right? And then I ran down every rabbit hole I could find on the internet, and I found 71
shows that started in 90. Like,
yeah.
Did the show have to start in that year, or was like the season from that year?
No, the shows that started that year, because it's just
Okay.
There's so many sitcoms that only ran like 4 episodes in any given year, that it really becomes overwhelming.
You're gonna get to that Emerald show.
Emerald? God, I'm not
Like,
there yet.
Like the
There's
chef.
an Emerald sitcom. Yeah, there's shit. It was an Emerald sitcom. I think it ran for a single episode before getting canceled.
Does he cook or does he just have hijinks?
I don't know. I didn't watch it.
There was only 1 episode, and Kris was out that night.
Yeah.
So just in 1991, I found 71 shows that started, 71 sitcoms that started in 1991. That started in 1991. Now, I took a wide net here. Anything that anybody called a sitcom anywhere on the internet that I could find, I was like, well, they called it a sitcom, whether it was Wikipedia or IMDb or whoever, right? So there's some things on here that I don't think are sitcoms. But I watched 1 episode of them, and then I just mark it off my list. All right, I watched it, and I'm like, I make a little note. This isn't a sitcom. This is bullshit. And I think this. So I have 1 or 2 that are probably worth mentioning. And I haven't gotten through them all yet. I've watched about 40 of the 71 that I could find.
Oh my god!
So far, and there's a couple in there that, like, here's, and this could be a whole podcast in and of itself.
Sorry, the experiment is just to watch 1 episode of each.
Yeah, I couldn't watch every episode. I mean, it would take you years to get through 1991.
Yeah.
But so lots of things I've decided aren't sitcoms, and I'm watching them anyway. I'm watching 1 episode before I make that. But something like The Wonder Years, because it was this show Brooklyn Bridge that is basically The Wonder Years, but the kid's Jewish. Like, I mean, there's really not a dime's worth of difference between this show and The Wonder Years. I don't think that's a sitcom. It's a drama that happens to have some funny parts, certainly. And Wonder Years is a great show. I'm not talking ill on it at all.
It's not a sitcom.
Right, but Wikipedia and IMDb have it listed as a sitcom, and I'm just like, nope, that's not what this is. This is a drama that happens to have some funny moments, but it's not a situation comedy. Right. And there's lots of things on the list that I get to, and I'm like, no, I don't think you're right. And there's some cartoons are listed as sitcoms that, like, obviously The Simpsons is a sitcom, But then you get to things like they got Rugrats listed as a sitcom, and I'm like, I don't know. I watched it, and I'm not talking crap on Rugrats. It's a fine cartoon.
I mean, that would technically.
How big a net are you going to throw? You know,
it is. I mean, it is a situation. It is a comedic show designed around the characters getting into wacky situations.
I don't think that Rugrats is a sitcom.
Show.
Like
it's like a.
Does that make Muppet Babies a sitcom?
It didn't air in 1991, so I haven't looked that one up yet.
Okay. If you wanted to get technical, but I mean, like, I still wouldn't qualify it. Is it? I mean, I guess I could see the point, the purpose of qualifying it as that, but it's a kids show. It's like its own thing.
But then, see, so that's a difficult one too, because then, like, some of these sitcoms are clearly designed for kids, but then as you, like, it's a gradation situation. Like, Salute Your Shorts first aired in 1991 and is listed as a sitcom. Clearly a children's show. Fine show.
But that's definitely that's a kid's sitcom.
That's a kid's
sitcom.
Right.
Like,
and then you move into
Explains It All as a sitcom.
Right.
You know?
That's the next one up the gradation. Then you get to Clarissa Explains It All, and you're like, that's a little bit more mature, but it's still pretty much for kids. But then the next step up is Blossom, and then it's like, well, where do you draw the line? Because, like, you can just keep gradationing your way all the way up to, like, I mean, Different Strokes is clearly a sitcom, but you know what? It's pretty childish. But then, like, one step below that is like a Punky Brewster. You're going to say Punky Brewster's not a sitcom?
I mean, I guess maybe you could go by what kind of network it was on. Like, you know, Clarissa Explains It All was on Nickelodeon. That was never aimed at adults. Like, but Blossom was on ABC, and that aired during prime time. So
yeah, but even the things that you listed on Nickelodeon that you qualified as kids shows. Salute Your Shorts, Clarissa, I would say Hey Dude is in there. But I think those are sitcoms. I think they follow the same rules. I mean, it's not like, you know, a studio audience and a laugh track and stuff like that, but I think it's still a situational comedy with these are your characters, this is your location, this is your weird stuff that happens.
Right.
So how is that functionally different than Ren and Stimpy?
Well, Ren and Stimpy doesn't have a contiguous plot like Animaniacs, so it's not a situational comedy. It's more of an anthology, right? Twilight Zone,
right.
You know, you've got a different premise, different characters. Ren and Stimpy aren't even really the same characters episode to episode. They're in space. They've got the same mannerisms, the same character traits, but you know,
they're more like Looney Tunes, where they're just tools in different toolboxes.
Right. Yeah, there's no character continuity, right?
Well, but also think about it this way, right? Like Clarissa, Hey Dude, Salute Your Shorts, Blossom, any of those things that you talked about, you're gonna have like a set number of locations, a set number of characters, and there's gonna be like a situation that ensues. Like with something like Rugrats or Ren and Stimpy or something, like you could have an episode where there's miscommunication and there's like funny hijinks or whatever, or you could have one where they're literally pretending to have an adventure where they fly to the moon or dig through the center of the earth or something like that. You know what I mean? Like something that would not be in a sitcom.
But you can't draw the line there either, because what about The Simpsons? They've had some pretty zany episodes, but I think it's pretty solidly in the sitcom camp.
Unless you want to you could then just carve out that line and say, I'm only going to do live action sitcoms. You
could draw a hard line there, and with one or two exceptions where animation meets reality, you'd probably have an easier go of it. But yeah, it was blowing my mind just thinking of that. And then I think the three big takeaways from this one, from thus far. There was a show called Top of the Heap that was a spin-off of Married with Children. That was absolute trash. Oh, God, it was
that
bad.
With what's his name from Friends?
Yep. Joey from Friends.
Who did it? Who was he in Married with Children? Like, who did it spin off to? What character did it spin off of?
He was like Kelly's boyfriend or something for a little while.
Yeah, in like 3 or 4 episodes, and then they gave him his own show because they liked him. With some other guy who I kind of recognize from like just like B-list sitcom stuff. And then that show. Oh, and you know who else was in it? Was the girl who plays Amy in Chasing Amy. She's in a couple Kevin Smith movies. I can't think of her
Joey
name.
Lauren Adams.
Sure. And the whole big premise of it was like this real inappropriate, like she was like, I don't know, 15 and he was supposed to be like 21 and she kept trying to have sex with him and he kept being like, you're going to get me in jail. And like just really didn't land the jokes. And then somehow that show got canceled, and in the same year, they managed to get a spin-off of that show where they kept Joey. I'm calling him Joey because whatever that guy's name is. The actor
he's Joey. You might as well. Like, the whole world knows him as Joey.
Right. Joey and the girl who kept trying to have sex with him, who was underage. They were like, these two, this part's working, so let's stick with that, and we'll just replace the other guy with this other guy, and it'll be his friend who does want to have sex with the girl, but the girl doesn't want to have sex with him. And yeah, just really bad. Not that I'm a huge Married with Children fan. I could see the value in some of it. Like, I get it, right? I get it was groundbreaking in a lot of ways, sure. To push the envelope in a lot of ways, sure. No argument there. And it definitely had its funny moments. Not my first choice, but this was just like the worst parts of it spun off and just run amok. It was just real terrible.
Wow. So Top of the Heap turned into Vinny and Bobby.
Vinny and Bobby. There it is.
Wow. So that was Robert Torti. Who's that guy? Why does he seem familiar? Oh, I've definitely seen this guy around.
That's the other guy from Top of the Heap?
He's the other guy from
Vinny and Bobby.
Bobby.
Right, okay. Yeah.
And yeah, Joey Lauren Adams. God, they wrote poor Joey Lauren Adams into that, huh?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So many of the bad sitcoms from 91 had a lot of like, there was at least two of them had, what's her name, who I liked, Brittany Murphy? Is that her name? The one who died, she was in like Sin City.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. She was in like 2 or 3 of these. There was a couple other. Drexel's Class had Jason Biggs, and who was the other one? Somebody else that I was like, oh, that's that kid when he was like 9. So there was a bunch of star potential. There was also a Harry and the Hendersons TV show, which I didn't even know existed.
I forgot about that.
I remember that. I do remember that.
I did not remember that.
I never saw it, but I remember finding out that it existed.
Thus far, I think that my favorite ones that aired, my top 3 right now, are Herman's Head, which is wonderful, and it has what's his name?
Inside Herman's Head.
Yeah, I remember that. That was good.
It's got a couple Simpsons people. It's got the girl, I can't think of her name, who does the voice for like Lisa, and it's got Hank Azaria.
Yeah,
Yardley Smith, is that her name?
Yeah, Yardley Smith.
Yeah, so she's great in it, and Hank Azaria is great in everything he's ever done, in my opinion. So I enjoyed Herman's Head. Dinosaurs aired that year. I got a soft spot in my heart for that show. Which right there, that's like, I mean, it's not a cartoon, so does that fall into live action? I don't know, but I definitely call it a sitcom.
It's a sitcom.
Sort of live. It's dead action.
Especially after the series finale.
Oof. You know what? I watched like the first episode and then like the second episode too, because I was like, I'm enjoying this. I'm watching another one. And they said they were making references the whole time about like, extinction and stuff. I guess they didn't know how many episodes they were going to get. They were like, let's keep putting this reference in there. And it's great. Home Improvement started that year. I was never a big fan, but in watching it, compared to the litany of shows that got canceled after like 1 or 2 episodes because they were so horrendous, I'm like, this was pretty good. You put that up against like, Almost Home or the Torkelsons or Hi Honey I'm Home, you're like, yeah, no, this is at least coherent writing. You see, like all the jokes make sense. Like there are jokes. The laugh track's not just coming on after somebody says a word and you're like, that wasn't a joke. The Randy Quaid show. There was a Randy Quaid show, Davis Rules. It kept doing that. Like they would just put the laugh track in after like somebody would say something. You're like, that's not a joke. They didn't.
That's
there was
the entirety of Big Bang Theory.
I've never watched that show.
Just shoving laugh tracks in where they don't belong.
I've seen it used to come on all the time. They have like clips of it play when I worked at GameStop on the TV thing. They always put clips on it, and it'd just be like some dude to come and be like, "Lord of the Rings," like they just say a nerdy word, and then the audience would freak out. Like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. I hate this with all of my heart. Well, Sean, I got some good news for you.
Yeah, what do you got?
Karen and I started Letterkenny the other day.
Did you now? God.
We did. I did not really know what to expect from that show. For some reason, I had it in my head that it was one of those animated things like Big Mouth or whatever. And I was like, I just don't really want to watch it. And then we pulled it up on the Plex, and the first few seconds of the first episode had me in tears of just the two hockey dudes rolling up and those two guys making fun of them. It was hysterical. We were only about 3 episodes in, but like that's definitely on the current list right now of things to watch. That show's outstanding. So thank you for that.
So I don't know if you got there yet. There's a very early episode that's just bad. It's the fart book episode. It's not funny. Like, it's
the first half of it was kind of funny. There were some genuine funny things in the first half of it. And then the second half of the episode, I was like,
yes, that's the worst episode they've ever done. They're on like season 10. That's as bad as it gets. And like,
that's good.
I've rewatched the whole series at least once, and like once beyond the first watch. And that episode is just, somebody else pointed it out to me early on. They were like, kind of skip that one, or just don't give up because that one. And I didn't. I think it was Bonnie. And I didn't think it was that bad the first time I watched it. And in rewatching it, the writing on it is like half the quality, in my opinion, of like the writing of all the episodes around it. And I'm not going to say season 10 is as good as season, like, I think they really hit their stride in like 3 or 4. But I don't think anything's ever been as poorly written as that second one. The jokes are usually faster and funnier than that episode.
It seemed like they gave up. It was weird. Like the first like 10 or so minutes of that episode were good. There was good comedy there. And then it just stopped being funny, and it never caught back up again. So I'm glad you said that. I was not going to stop watching it because like the first 2 episodes had me rolling so much. Like, all right, this could just be a single miss and then I'll get back to business. But that was definitely it was a low note to stop watching that night on. But no, that show is freaking great.
Yeah. So
great.
Around episode 5 or 6, me and Jacqueline had to stop and look up online what the hell some of the words meant. It's totally worth it. And like, I'm a hockey fan, and I didn't know, like, especially when the hockey, I don't know if you've met the coach yet. The coach is my favorite character. He might not come into like the end of season 1, beginning of season 2.
No, I haven't met him yet.
The 2 hockey kids have a coach, and he's my favorite character on the show. But when they're talking with the coach, or like it's a scene about hockey, I know some hockey lingo, but man, they were just throwing words out. Some of it's because apparently I don't know hockey well enough, and some of it's because Canada hockey is way more serious than ours. Like, they have a whole, what they call a billet system up in Canada, where it's just normal that like kids go live with other people so that they can play hockey more. Like, you just send your kids to like the city and they live with these billet families, like Billet. So like they start talking about billet this and billet that. And I was like, what the hell are they talking about? And apparently this is why Canadians are so much better at hockey than us. They just like give up their children at the age of like, they're like, oh, you're 14? You just go live wherever there's good hockey so that you learn better. It's Goodbye, like son. Out into the world.
Go off to hockey school?
It's not hockey school, though. You just like, you live with families that like, they send them to like other cities where like they live with this other family because that family is closer to like, I don't know, hockey. But it's not like hockey school. I don't think it's an education situation. In fact, I think education might be suffering in this transaction. And I don't think the billet family gets paid. I think all of Canada's just like, we need to work together to produce the best hockey players. And we're just going to trust each other with our children. It's a real weird... And you know what? They keep producing the best hockey players. So I guess they're right.
You can't argue with the results.
You can't argue with the results. But yeah, so some of the work, it was worth the 15-minute walk down a rabbit hole on Wikipedia to learn all the Letterkenny slang.
All right.
All right.
That's how I feel about that.
I have a couple of other movies that I would love to discuss here real quick.
Sure. Movie
Because
podcast.
I did some genuine movie watching this time. Like I always say I'm gonna.
Oh
This
yeah.
time I did.
Okay.
So since our last episode, I have now seen both Top Gun movies.
Wasn't the new
Oh.
one good?
It was very good. It was
Yeah.
not Best Picture good.
Y-
It was still Top Gun. There still wasn't a whole lot of movie going on. The flight sequences were amazing.
I think I agree with you. I think I think you're right. It wasn't Best Picture good, but then I'm kind of like, what was these days? You know, like,
Yeah, I mean we're it's I guess the pickings were pretty slim for Best
Yeah.
Picture this year because like friggin' Avatar was up there too, and I can't imagine that was Shakespeare. But I mean, look, the first Top Gun was great. It was not a good movie, but it was a great movie. It was like nothing happens in that whole goddamn movie. It's just nothing going on. It's just excuses to get into planes and fly around. And I was perfectly fine with that. It was just, I felt like people had said that to me before, and I thought for sure something's got to be there. Like, the love story was hilarious. There was no reason for that woman to be interested in Tom Cruise other than he looks like Tom Cruise. And then, like, she just, like, in love with him. It was so bizarre. That movie was so weird, but it was so awesome.
apparently the reason that she is not in the new movie, the new Top Gun movie, is because she aged like a person would in 40
she
years,
looks like a
rather
human.
than Tom Cruise, who is a perfectly well preserved little mummy person. So that's why they cast Jennifer Connelly in the second one, because they wanted good looking
A
people.
little bit more sex appeal.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to say no to more Jennifer Connelly on screen.
I know that.
So it certainly wasn't a problem for me.
Yeah.
And like she was even mentioned in the first movie, I think. So that was kind of it was kind of something.
Yeah. I thought it was good. What'd you think of what'd you think of Val Kilmer? How the whole Val Kilmer
I was
thing
just
was
going to
done?
mention that was handled pretty well.
I thought so
Can't
too.
believe they got him on camera too. Like, granted, that worked a lot. I mean, they never could have pulled that off in context of Willow. Like,
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't try, because like having an old general in modern times, that's one thing, but having Mad Mardigan be in that situation, I don't think that would have worked at all. So that I'm glad that panned out. But it was pretty good. It was touching. It was more of a movie than the first one, but it still wasn't much of a movie. But God, those flight sequences were fucking awesome.
Yeah. When they first started sort of doing that trick with Val Kilmer's character, where he's texting with Tom Cruise and you see the text come up and it says ice, and that there's a lot of communication that's happening not spoken. I guess it was good because I felt like his presence was felt even though he was in that one scene.
Yeah.
But at first I was kind of like, I don't know if this is working. But then I thought that scene was so good. And, even though what he was writing and the dialogue as written had to do most of the work and he just kind of had to sit there passively, I thought that when he finally did speak, it was really powerful. And I'm wondering if they had to like ADR his dialogue, or if you know what I mean, like if there's some microphone in a sound booth that can make him sound like a whisper, because I know that I saw the documentary that he made about his life and all the footage over the years, and like I know that like he's got like an electronic voice box thing, like that's how he has to talk now.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I thought it was handled really well. It was a very cool movie and quite a life experience. I'm glad that I have now seen the Top Gun movies, and the volleyball scene was really something. The beach football scene was really something. That was a neat little follow up to the volleyball scene, I thought. It does not compare the video game's not really much of a video game of Top Gun. There's not a lot of landing on aircraft carriers and crashing into the ocean.
There wasn't
so
a lot
that was
of
a bit of a
landing on
disappointment.
aircraft carriers when I played that game either.
That's a good point. There was no like really dramatic refueling while in the air. That was another big part of the Top Gun video game. I played a lot of Top Gun and Top Gun 2 on NES, and so the differences between the games and the movie were a bit of a letdown. But the music was pretty badass. Like, man, they really used that song in the first one. Like that besides like the original theme, the whole
The Danger Zone? It's been a while
Yeah,
since I watched
Danger
it.
Zone.
Yeah, all right.
there's they really used that song. Like they paid for it. they used it
They got their
over
money's
and
worth.
over, and it was effective every goddamn time. Ah, that was a good time. I also took the time to watch my pick, Unstoppable, which I guess in the realm of current news situations, it's probably best that we didn't spend the episode talking about a movie about a train derailment. That said, it is just as awesome as I remembered it. Karen and I watched it a few nights ago, and it was exactly as good as we remembered it. And neither of you guys watched it, right?
No, sorry.
No. I mean, I've seen it before, but
God, that movie's great. It's so stupid, but it's so wonderful.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, made my freaking week, man. Karen and I both had like a rough day. We're like, you know what? We need to watch the train movie. And I was like, I don't know. We're both pretty tired, but I guarantee if this movie's as good as I remember, there's no way either of us are falling asleep. And like 5 minutes in, we were both riveted. Like, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, catch that train. Get it. God, it's great. Oh, I forgot what's her name? God, she's playing Ahsoka in the new live action. Rosario Dawson. I forgot she was in that movie too. She's great.
Was she also unstoppable?
She kept yelling at people. Like she was like the manager off duty. It was remarkable how much that movie has in common with Die Hard. It's like it's the same formula but with a train instead of terrorists. It's still like, here's the guys in charge, and we're the gruff underdogs, we're the street level guys, and we're gonna yell at the guys in charge because those guys don't know what they're talking about. We play by our own rules, and we're gonna stop this train how we want to stop it. It's so good. It's so good. I love Unstoppable.
I don't know. That analogy's not going to do anything for me unless Reginald VelJohnson shows up and tries to help stop the train.
Well, that's like I wish that would have made it flawless. That would have made it like Oscar worthy right there. He showed up. But I think that Rosario Dawson is playing the him character.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
She's
She's smoking hot. Don't get me wrong, but if I got to pick, I'm going with him. Who do I trust to save this train? Who do I trust to save this building? Who do I trust to raise this family and kick this nerd out of his house? It's not her. It's not her. Again, smoking hot, no doubt. Does a great job in Clerks. But
God, you guys saw Clerks 3, right?
I finally saw Clerks 3.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That was gutting, man.
Yeah. I feel like he's done that. Like, what was it? The end of that Jane Silent Bob, whatever the last one was called. He kind of pulled
Reboot?
that. Was that what it was called? Reboot. The end of that one, he kind of pulled that shit on me too. And this one, he was just like, I'm just gonna every now and then throw like 3 gut punches at you. Fuck it. Like the pull-out scene at the end. I don't know if we shouldn't be spoiling this. I don't know.
Well,
Spoiler alert.
Listen.
Shit.
I don't think we should relitigate Clerks 3 because last time when I hadn't saw it, you guys talked about it for like probably a half hour. So probably people that are tuning into this will be like, oh, they're talking about that again. But yeah, I did really like it. Like, I guess like when I watch these movies, I sort of forget how clunky, Kevin Smith is with sort of the dialogue and the filmmaking and stuff like that. Like, I sort of forget how one thing sort of doesn't feed seamlessly into the next scene, that it's like a little bit like clunky and weird and whatever. And like for a while I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm into this movie. But then by the end, it just felt like a love letter to the whole series. And I was like, oh, like it kind of choked me up.
Yeah, there was a lot of good there, but you're right. We probably shouldn't relitigate that one.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll go last. And again, I think this is something that we talked about months and months ago, but I'm back on it. Because when we talked about it months and months ago, I was watching this on Netflix. The first season was on Netflix, and none of the other seasons. And then finally, I was like, "Oh, I'm tired of not seeing this." So I got Paramount Plus, and I was like, "I'm gonna watch all these in 7 days while it's free." And then I was like, "Oh, this was impossible, and I shouldn't have tried this." So I am paying for Paramount Plus for a month. But Nate and I are watching the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and now when like only seasons 2 and 3 are on Paramount Plus, but when we finish it, I think that I have to buy season 4 and season 5 because like otherwise I think my kid won't want to spend time with me. But yeah, God, it's so good. I think it might I mean, I haven't seen any other like cartoons of the turtles other than the 80s one when we were kids, but I think this might easily be my favorite like Ninja Turtles thing. Like it just feels like it takes everything that's successful from all the other stuff.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. It's freaking phenomenal.
I don't know how to describe which one this is. It's whichever
This is
one.
the CG one.
Oh no, the one I was going to say that when Zach was a kid, there was one that he was watching, and I watched with him, and they did this like I don't know if it was a movie episode, like like a special or whatever. But
Turtles Forever.
Is that what it is? Where they cross over, and there was like the black and white
Yep.
ones, and there was the ones from where we were kids, and they just did it so well. And like when I was growing up, I watched the one when we were kids, obviously, but my dad was also buying me the Eastman and Lard comic books, which were kind of dark and gritty. It was more of like a brooding Batman type of turtle. And like, so I kind of grew up with both those images in my head, which the first live action movie, did a pretty good job of kind of grabbing the parts that, I don't remember how old we were. 12, I'm going to say 12. 12-year-old Sean, 11-year-old Sean. I don't remember how old we were. But however old I was, that first movie did a good job of grabbing what I loved from both the gritty one and the sillier cartoon one and putting them both together and bringing it to life. And I think that's part of what makes that such a great movie. But that cartoon, it was like the gritty one, the one when we were kids. It was whatever Zach was watching. I think it was one or two more versions of them. And they just put them all in, and it was such a well blended experience. I was like, this is exactly what I wanted. They nailed this. And I mean, they were clearly targeting me because there's a touch of nostalgia there, but then there's also a touch of like, I'm showing what I loved as a kid to, the next generation here, right? I got Zach sitting here and he's watching it. And it might have even been Steven. Maybe it was later. Maybe it was Steven. But one of them, when they were
that show
kids,
went for a long time. That ran from 2003 to 2010.
So that was Zach. That's Zach time period then, because Zach would have been 4 to 14 when that aired then. So yeah, that would have been Zach. But that one I loved. I haven't seen this
phenomenal.
2012 one, but
so the 2012 one is even better than that one.
Really?
And in fact, they did a similar situation. With they had a mashup with the old cartoon.
See,
and that time they actually got the old cartoon voices to do it. Where in Turtles Forever they were sound-alikes.
So that's what I thought Sean was talking about. I'm not to that point in the show yet. I haven't got to the point where they have this big crossover thing. Well, there was one kind of nod to it early on where they show that while there's Dimension X, there's also other dimensions, and at one point they look into another dimension, which is Earth, but it was the old 80s TV show. So I've seen a little bit of that, and I know that they're going to do that crossover thing at some point. Right now, we're in the middle of season 3, and the way season 3 started was really awesome because, so like the way season 2 ended, there was like a big battle with the Krang in New York, and like basically like the Krang takes over New York, and enslaves all these people and makes them mutants and like takes them to Dimension X to work and stuff to be their slaves. And the Turtles, I think they lose Splinter and they have to like get out of the city. And then season 3 starts at that farmhouse that April has upstate, like just like the 1990s movie. And which is why I think that must be something in one of the comic books, because it's been in so many iterations of these Turtles properties. And like a lot of the stuff that they do in the movie they did in this show, like Splinter sort of appearing to them over the fire and saying like, you guys have to work together and like blah blah blah. But the other thing that was crazy about season 3, the beginning of season 3, when they're at this farmhouse, is like every other episode has been almost like a nod to a horror movie. There was one where they like the mutagen like creates Muckman or something. Or I guess it's not Muckman, but it's like some like thing that's made out of like swamp goo or whatever, and like I think it is giving a nod to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because it's wearing like overalls and it looks, it's like wielding a chainsaw and stuff. And then I think it's a nod to Friday the 13th, because at one point it steals Casey's hockey mask. There was another one that was definitely like a nod to the Thing, because they find the Krang spaceship in the basement, and there's that like Krang assimilated thing, and it grows all the tentacles and stuff, just like the Thing. Like we're basically watching things that were like almost like parodies of horror movies, but they were in this turtle show. Like it was, I don't know, it was really cool.
Yeah, that show is outstanding. I watched almost all of it, and then I came back for the finale. It's ridiculous. It's my second favorite iteration of the Turtles, behind the current IDW comic, which I still think is the best. And of course, the 1990 movie, which is my favorite movie of all time. But yeah, that 2012 Ninja Turtle show is phenomenal, and I often think of that's where I'm going to show. That's what I'm going to show my kids next. But we were still working our way through DuckTales, and they're really enjoying that. So
yeah,
the original or the new one?
So the new one's great.
I've heard the new one's great. I haven't watched it yet.
I like this 2012 Turtles show for the same reasons that I like the new DuckTales. Like that it gives nods to the old stuff. It like defines the characters better. Like in the old DuckTales, like Huey, Dewey, and Louie were all voiced by the same person, and like
yeah.
In the new one, like there's much better voice actors, and they all have distinct personalities. I feel like in the new Turtles show, or it's not new, but in the 2012 Turtles show, they all have really distinct personalities, and even the animation makes them more distinct. Like they don't look like cookie cutter turtles, all with just different headbands. Like
yeah, they have different
like Donatello's got that gap between his teeth, and Raphael's got that like jagged thing on his shell, and Mikey's kind of got those little like turtle freckles. Like
I also love that Donatello is voiced by Rob Paulson, who voiced Raph in the original cartoon.
Oh, really?
Great. Yeah. So in that crossover episode, there's some good comedy there.
Yeah, it's so good. And I also love how the animation kind of like, it's a little bit anime, and it's a little bit just sort of classic animation. And then also like when they have to be sneaky and turn into, and be ninjas and sneak around, like the lighting looks really dim and their eyes narrow,
their eyes
and they
all
look
white
all cool
and stuff. Yeah.
The
theme song's pretty good too.
Theme song's amazing. We sing along every time.
Yeah, Ellie started watching that on her own actually, on her tablet, because the first season's on Netflix. So she watched pretty much all of season 1. So I think she'd be down with watching that again. I'm trying to figure out where to go next after DuckTales, because like, so we got a big movie moment happening tomorrow. Finally showing Ellie Empire Strikes Back. So she has no idea the whole Darth Vader thing. She's seen A New Hope a couple of times now. I showed the kids episode 1. I showed the kids that stupid Clone Wars movie, and they've seen me watch a couple things in the background, but she's never seen the big Vader reveal. And that's the thing that I've been hardline about keeping a secret for her whole life. It's like, nobody spoil that. Once you get to that point, then we can start watching all the Star Wars,
Wait.
which,
Has John already seen it?
he has, and he has kept that secret.
Okay, that's
He
what I
knows
was
how
going to ask.
important it is.
Yeah, because let me tell you, with me and my siblings, that if one of us saw that, that's it. It's over. We would have just spoiled the hell out of that for each other.
Yeah, no, he wouldn't care about ruining it for her. He just knows how much it means to me.
Okay, there it is.
He knows that he would get into serious trouble. Like I went through lengths, right? Because every kid's book spoils that. Every kid's book is just like, Daddy Vader and all that stuff. It's like, they're not old enough to have seen this yet. Why are you just saying this shit out loud? It's ridiculous. It's like the 5-Minute Star Wars Stories book. I actually re-edited some. I taped a couple of pages together so that you can't see the thing where they're just like, and then he fought Darth Vader, not knowing that he was his father, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, what are you doing, book? What are you doing? This is stupid. Stop that. And I would whited out a couple of things and rewrote words over it to kind of like change it so that it doesn't spoil who Darth Vader is. It's because I'm a lunatic.
Kris,
but tomorrow
you're amazing. You're a good parent.
You are a good parent. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. Tom would probably greatly appreciate it if you would just give him all of your edited Star Wars material.
No problem. Or at the very least, I can do the same for his. The 5-Minute Star Wars Stories are great. But anyway, so she's going to see that tomorrow. So I was thinking like, well, then maybe after DuckTales, I start them on like Star Wars Rebels, because that's a super fun show. And they're also super interested in seeing The Mandalorian because they've seen Grogu everywhere and they think he's adorable. I don't know. But then like I go back to like, well, one of my other favorite things in the world is Ninja Turtles. And that 2012 show is freaking amazing, but it's also pretty long. So like, I don't know. Do I skip right to DuckTales season 3, or do I start interspersing a couple of the other things? Because like there was that new Voltron show that I really liked. I don't know. What should I do? What should I do after we finish season 2 of DuckTales?
I say you get through DuckTales and then you see what's next. That's just my 2 cents.
I think
that's fair.
I think you take a hard left and go to the 1980s Garfield series.
Oh my god!
Right? I mean, you got to work that in at some point.
I actually just last week watched an episode of Garfield and Friends with Ellie.
Did you?
Because she found some weird new Garfield show that's on Netflix.
Oh.
Garfield and Friends was the one that was on in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
There was some Garfield stuff, and then there was some stuff that was on that farm.
Yep. So we watched an episode of that, and she thought it was pretty funny because she found this book that Karen had when she was a kid, like a Garfield book from when she was a kid. So we started reading that at story time, and then she found a Garfield show on Netflix, and then I was like, all right, you think this is cool? Check out Garfield and Friends. And it was okay. I probably shouldn't have gone back to it.
All I can say about Garfield and Friends is our freshman year of high school, I lived with Jim Yamaguchi for a month. It was while we were all in Avita, while we were had rehearsals every night, and it was when we moved from my old house to my new house, or the house that my parents had when we were in high school. When I was in high school, and like they lived with my grandfather in Hamilton, but I couldn't go back and forth like that because I had rehearsals every night. So I lived with Jim Yamaguchi for a month, and he had it worked out that he could watch Garfield and Friends 4 times a day. 4 times a day we used to watch Garfield and Friends. he knew that it was on in the morning on Fox, and then like on PHL 17 like right after, and then it was the same thing after school, and we had to watch Garfield and Friends 4 times a day. I mean, I wasn't complaining, it was fine, but like this was his system, and he had it worked out that we were going to do this 4 times a day.
That's why that man's an American hero.
That's true.
So the best thing about Garfield, I love the show, and I love the intro, and look, nothing screams Saturday mornings as a child to me like that show. And I know it was a little bit later for us. It probably didn't start till like 90, 91, something like that. So we were probably 10 or 11 at that point. So you think I would harken back to something earlier, but something about that show, just that is Saturday morning cartoons for me. But what's better than that is the Garfield Halloween special, which that aired since the 80s. Like, that was the first thing they put out. There was eventually a Thanksgiving special and a Christmas special, and they were fine. But that Halloween special, if you don't know it, go watch it, because it's the it's just Garfield. There's none of those friends from the farm, which I didn't mind, but they weren't as good as Garfield. It's just Garfield and Odie and John, and it's only like 20 minutes long, and There is nothing, Kris, if you haven't showed that to your kids, that is the Halloween special. Like, forget about It's a Pumpkin Charlie Brown or whatever the hell that one was called. That was the vegetables you ate while you were waiting for the Garfield Halloween special to start. You're like, all right, I'll sit through Charlie Brown because I got nothing else to do. But by God, Garfield's Halloween special. It is the best.
I think I remember this, and I feel like you're right. I feel like it was really good.
It had like 4 or 5 great songs. They meet some ghosts. Oh God, it's so good. And Binky the Clown, he's in it too, of course. Because hey, kids.
All right, yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. So
Oh.
try to remind me around Halloween.
Yeah, that's the action. I watched it this Halloween. I watch it every Halloween. I don't care how old I get. I don't care if there's a kid around. I'll watch it without a kid. Don't give a damn.
Well, guess we should talk about the Untouchables, huh?
Why start now?
Actually, real quick, have you seen the new promo thing for the Mario movie?
A new one? I saw the one everyone was laughing that he didn't have a butt.
Okay, all right. This just came out on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh no. I mean, I watched the Super Bowl, so if the commercial aired,
I don't think it aired during the Super Bowl. It was kind of a thing that happened around it. Okay, all right. So on Super Bowl Sunday, I cannot freaking believe this. All right, did you guys used to watch the Super Mario Brothers Super Show?
sure.
Yeah.
All right, I am sending you this link. So on Super Bowl Sunday, they posted on Twitter as the Super Mario Brothers that they launched a new website for their plumbing business. And the commercial that is on here is absolutely insane. I mean, if you guys have the ability to click on the link and watch it, I highly recommend doing it because I really want to hear your reactions to it.
Like right
It's
now?
super short. Yeah, it's
Okay.
super short.
All right, I'm doing it.
I'm doing it.
We're the Mario Brothers, and plumbing's a game. We're not like the others who get all the fame. When your sink is in trouble, you could call us on the double. We're faster than the others, you'll be hooked on the brothers.
Thank you, Super Mario Bros. It seems like the only thing you haven't drained is my bank account.
Yeah.
For super service, call or text Super Mario Bros. Plumbing today at 929-55-MARIO. Or reach us on the World Wide Web at smbplumbing.com.
So have you called the phone number yet?
I have.
Of course you have. Why did I even ask? I should have just said, if I had even like a couple hairs on my nutsack, I would have just said, so what happened when you called the phone number, Kris?
I mean, first of all, I cannot believe that they're using that song from the old Mario cartoon. That Nintendo's even allowing them to do it. But that is absolutely hysterical. The woman who's talking in that ad is reportedly the woman who voiced Princess Toadstool in the old cartoon.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
which is amazing. There are a bunch of wacky hidden things all over this website. Like clicking on different things will get you these like different sound effects and things. There are little hidden sites that you can find. But if you text, actually I can bring up the text message. You text them and it's thanks for your interest in Super Mario Brothers Plumbing. We're a family-owned and operated business providing white glove plumbing services to Brooklyn and Queens. Please click the link to sign up and get exclusive updates. So of course I did, and like every couple of days they'll send me a new movie poster. And they're like, hey, here's a poster with Toad on it. So that's great. And when you call, you get a voicemail from Charlie Day's Luigi, just like talking about the business and thanks for calling the website and everything. I called, I put it on speakerphone. Both the kids thought it was just magic. They're like, this is great.
Thank you for calling Super Mario Brothers Plumbing. It's me, Luigi. And if you need service, please text us at the same number you just called. 929-55-MARIO. That's 929-556-2746. Message us about any issues, wherever you live. House, condo, mansion. And we'll be sure to text you back right away because at Super Mario Brothers Plumbing, we don't say let's wait. We say let's go. Oh, and check our website, smbplumbing.com. We're still working on it, so more updates to come. Bye-bye.
They are doing everything right with this, and it's freaking me out because like the last thing I would want is for this movie to be terrible, but at the same time, like everything they've shown me so far has been like making me really cautiously optimistic because holy crap, this is great.
Right now, they're working real hard to reverse death and reanimate Captain Lou Albano. And just for you, Kris.
And Danny Wells, they're both dead. Don't forget about poor Danny Wells.
I didn't know. I was more familiar with Captain Lou.
I didn't know Captain Lou was dead till Paul just spoiled that.
Oh, man.
Stop telling me when famous people die. I'll assume they're alive.
It's the opposite of your stance on people that you know in real life. If you don't hear from them, you assume they're dead.
I would, because you don't expect Gene Hackman to call you. So when he doesn't call, I assume everything is status quo. If you stop calling, I assume you're dead. Because it's not status quo. It's a simple system.
Fair enough.
Do you want me to address Hollywood before we start talking about the movie?
Oh, do you have a Hollywood address for this week?
I think so.
Then absolutely, sir. Get to work.
All right. So I think, listen, Hollywood. I think this is more of just a checking to see if you're okay, right? I think I just want to check in and make sure you're all right and that there's no problems. I've noticed that you've gone a little bit all in on Jonathan Majors, right? Like, in 1 month, he is going to destroy us in 2 different ways. He's going to be Kang, and he's going to be the villain in Creed. And I was like, Hollywood, what are you doing? You got to slow down on Jonathan Majors. And then I saw a picture of him online. Like, I guess he was like training for Creed or whatever, Creed 3, and he's like drinking a smoothie, and then like you could see like his bicep, and it's like thick as a tree trunk, and it's almost like he's like carved out of marble, right? And I was like, wait a minute, Hollywood, did he hurt you? Did he tell you he had to be in these movies? Is he threatening you? So like, I guess I just want to make sure that Hollywood's okay and it's not like getting kicked around by Jonathan Majors.
All right.
He's quite the specimen. But when I saw him in Loki, he didn't look all that impressive. Like, he was impressive. I thought he was really interesting as Kang in Loki, don't get me wrong. But I didn't think he was all that physically imposing. And then I saw the photo shoot you're talking about. Oh. That man is unnatural.
I'm looking it up now. That dude, way jacked. Yeah, I didn't really know him, and then I saw him in Kang, or I saw him as Kang in Loki. I guess he's clothed the whole time in some pretty thick garb. He's oh no. Yeah, no, that's not. Some people's muscles don't line up right, and it's just like, it's not like, even when I was in shape, I didn't have that muscle. What the fuck muscle is that?
Yeah,
he's too jacked. He's genuinely terrifying.
Yeah. Well, listen, if anything's wrong, Hollywood, I don't think I can do anything, but I guess if you need to talk, I'm here. All right.
I certainly am not going to protect you from him, but.
All right, that's it, Kris. That's what I got. That's my Hollywood address.
Okay, well, then let's get to work talking about the Untouchables. Let's see here. The Untouchables, right? Did I do this right? I did. I just forgot to change that.
Was a poem written by William Shakespeare in 1493. It was adapted into a movie in the 1920s that perfectly encapsulated what Shakespeare had intended when he first wrote the verses. He suggested that a man named Sean Connery play the lead role, and he actually foresaw the invention of the Tommy gun, not unlike Leonardo da Vinci and the helicopter. Have you found your stuff yet? Am I still stalling? What is happening?
No, I'm ready. I'm ready whenever. I just want to see how far you'd go.
Oh, for God's sake, take it away.
The Untouchables was released on June 2nd, 1987, was distributed by Paramount Pictures. It was directed by Brian De Palma with screenplay by David Mamet. The film is based on the book The Untouchables by Elliot Ness and Oscar Fraley. Brian De Palma's other works include Carrie, Scarface, and Mission Impossible. David Mamet is known for various stage plays and screenplays including The Postman Always Rings Twice, Wag the Dog, and one of my personal favorites, State and Maine. The movie stars Kevin Costner, Charles Martin Smith, Andy Garcia, Robert De Niro, and Sean Connery. It tells the story of a bunch of cops who pretend they don't drink, walking around with very large guns in an effort to stop a gangster who doesn't care how many people know he likes to drink. I watched this with Karen and Greg via nefarious means. I had a glass of chocolate milk. Greg had Reese's Big Cup with pretzel. He wanted to get the potato chip ones, but he couldn't find them. And as a side note, I didn't eat them during the movie, but there are new barbecue-flavored Doritos, and they are freaking fantastic.
Oh, shit. I did not know about the Doritos.
Oh, they're good.
I watched this. I paid YouTube. It wasn't nefarious at all. I was like, here, YouTube, you could have $2. I think it was $2.99. I don't know what it was. YouTube just had it, but they were like, you got to give us a little money. I was like, that's fair. I own this movie on both VHS and DVD, but
you paid YouTube.
But I paid YouTube because both of those objects aren't in my apartment. I believe my DVD collection is in my parents' house, maybe, and my VHS collection is probably in my little sister's house. I don't have half my crap because I have a little apartment. So yeah, I gave YouTube their a couple bucks. They served me well. That's where I watch most of those 1991 TV shows, so they deserve a few bucks. And I didn't eat anything because we were out of junk food, and at some point you're looking in the fridge and you're like, hummus, apples, I don't think so. I'm just gonna drink. So I had some whiskey because Prohibition movie. They were
right. Karen and Greg both drank I think whiskey during the movie.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
It's apropos.
And yeah, I just couldn't with the health food. It's come on. All right, Paul, what do you got?
All right, well, you get ready to judge me. I think you guys are going to judge me pretty hard. So I watched this movie with Nate. I let him watch this movie. Basically, over the weekend, Sherry was at work. Nate and I were home together all weekend. We found stuff to do. But at a certain point, when we had watched a lot of Ninja Turtles and I was like sort of done watching Ninja Turtles for the day, I was like, I want to watch a movie. And I was like, well, I have to watch this for the podcast anyway. Like, maybe we can just watch it together. And I sort of looked online and I was like, what is the stuff that's questionable? And of course, I think the big thing it cited was the scene where Robert De Niro beats the guy with the baseball bat. But I kind of remembered a lot of the other stuff. And I was like, I think I can just sort of prepare him for this. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch this with him. So I was like, Nate, do you want to watch a movie with me for the podcast? So, of course, he was like, yes, because he thinks it's, like, super cool that we do this podcast, even though he doesn't, listen to it or know what it is, right? So he's like, yeah, I want to watch it. He's like, what's the movie? And I was like, it's called The Untouchables. And he's like, that sounds great. And I was like, do you know what it's about? And he goes, is it about a guy that you can't touch? And if you touch him, he'll explode? And I was like, nope, that's not what it's about at all. And he's
but that's
like,
the movie I want to watch next.
Yeah. And he's like, well, what's it about? And I was like, it's about Elliot Ness, and he is a federal agent, and he forms a team to stop Al Capone, who was the biggest gangster at the time. And he's like, well, all right, I guess. It's not that other thing. And I was like, yeah, okay. So, we watched it together. I had to pause it a lot and explain certain things. But he was with it the whole way. And we ate peanut butter and banana sandwiches and pretzels.
Wow.
Elvis Presley style. I like it.
Oh, yeah.
I was about, how old is he? Is he 11?
Yeah, he'll be 11 in April.
Yeah, I was about his age when I watched this movie. I probably saw it on TV, so I probably saw an edited version. But I think I might have even been a little younger than him when I saw it. Well, I don't know how they edited it, but
honestly, I mean, I guess I guess we jump right in and talk about it, but like, I thought the scene that was going to be most questionable and most problematic was the scene with Capone. And when we got to that scene, like, it starts. I kind of remembered the scene, and like, it's in that elaborate hotel, that fancy hotel that he's living in.
A ridiculously large table.
Yeah, and so it goes into this lavish ballroom or whatever, where he's meeting with all these other organized crime folk. And I pause it, and I was like, Nate, this part's gonna be a little scary. I just want you to be prepared for what's happening. And I kid you not, this is what happened, right? I pause it, I say that to him. This is gonna be a little scary. And he looks at me and he goes, "Is he gonna beat somebody with a baseball bat?" And I was like, How did you know that? And he was like, "Well, for my MTSS reading, we learned about Al Capone, and I found out that he invited people to his parties that double crossed him, and then he would make an example of them with a baseball bat." And I was like, "All right, then you're prepared for this." That was that.
His what reading? Was this school reading?
Yeah, this was like a school reading assignment thing.
Wild.
So, yeah, apparently they learned about Al Capone, so he already knew about that. The scene that he was a little troubled by, and I didn't even remember this, it wasn't even on my radar.
Sean Connery.
What? No, it was not with Connery. The scene where there's that guy posing as a cop in the elevator when the accountant guy goes down with the informant that they have. That was just a little violent with him being shot in the head, and and then seeing the bodies. So like he kind of like cringed, and I was like, "Oh, like I didn't even remember that was there." But other than that, it was actually kind of but it wasn't really a troubling movie for a 11-year-old, I thought.
I'm just think it's cool that he stuck with it, because it was a little dry, and as far as like coming off of Ninja Turtles, But
I guess he was just waiting for somebody to explode when you touch them. So,
well, that little girl blew up right early in the movie. So,
ooh, yeah,
yeah, that the Sean Connery scene, it was hard to take seriously, because he got hit by at least half a dozen bullets in the front, and then he turned around and got hit by another like 10 bullets in the back, and dude was still alive.
But you know what, though? I think that was, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I think that was sort of accurate to like what the Tommy gun did. Like, I think it fired a lot of bullets really fast, but like a lot of them didn't necessarily like go through you, or that it unless it hit you in the heart or in the head or something, that you were just riddled with bullets, slowly bleeding to death. Like I feel like I've seen that in other 30s gangster movie type things.
Yeah, I think so. I think reality might be unbelievable in that like you can just have these and not any second now I'm going to say a whole sentence. I think you can have scenarios where people are ridiculously injured and they go on for ridiculously long periods of time. You're like, this is upsetting and doesn't seem real, but it's like, I think maybe that is real a lot of times, and it's we don't want to think about it that way. We like to believe that if you get cut in half, you're instantly dead, but you're not. If you get cut clean in half, you're probably alive for like 5 minutes, just in a terrible situation, right? Before you finally have enough blood loss to the brain that you stop, So
I would just assume at that point you'd pass out from pain or shock, You
want to think you would, but I think a lot of times people don't. I think the wildly graphic nature of this, and then him dragging himself, I think it's, while our brains want to say no, I think it's totally plausible. Like that scene in Hannibal that really ruined the movie for me, where he's eating the guy's brain and he's still awake. And then like it seemed like a cartoon to me. Like it just ended that movie for me. And then like I found out later it was like, no, that basically like they do brains. Like I found out later they did open skull brain surgery on my grandfather with him awake because they wanted to talk to him as they were like pulling pieces of his brain out to like, make sure they weren't pulling out something that was important or something. Like they'll do that. You can just have the top of your head off and they can keep talking to you. Like that's an option.
Put it back? What if they pulled out something that was important? Was he going to tell him and be like, no, put that back?
I don't know, but they talked to him during the process. You met Poppy. It was clear that, yeah, come on. Hey, come on. Yeah. But so like there's just certain things that like, and I think that's one of those situations. Paul's kind of right. Like if you don't hit a heart and you don't hit if you don't hit something really important, you could have a lot of holes in you. You're losing a lot of blood, but I don't know, just bleeding out's going to take a while.
It just seemed to me really implausible with the sheer quantity of bullets that went into that man for as long as they did, that nothing vital was hit. I mean, I buy that he was angry enough to stay alive just out of anger. It was just it struck me as a bit odd, but that man was indeed a bullet sponge.
Indeed.
It was so this movie. Kevin Costner is certainly an actor. He does say lines. He's very Kevin Costner, and everybody else in this movie was great. And not that Kevin Costner was bad, but like everything I see Kevin Costner in, he's exactly the same.
Well, you know what? Here's what I have to say. I hate to be the guy that like raves about the movie again, because like I feel like I did that last month. But then again, the movie we watched last month, I could have literally not watched it and then gone onto the podcast and still have been as animated as if I did. This movie I haven't seen for like 20 years. Like I think I probably watched it like when I was in college, and I remember liking it. I remember thinking it was a good movie. I think a lot of the big moments I remembered, and sort of the big action set pieces, the big things that sort of fed into the next, the raid that they did in Canada at the border, I remembered that pretty well. The boardroom scene with Capone, the thing in the train station at the end of the movie. There was a lot of stuff I remembered. But like honestly, when this movie started, I was kind of like, all right, like what am I in for? And then at a certain point, I think it was when they were doing the raid, that first raid where he's like, there's Canadian whiskey in here, boys, and they bust open the boxes and it's like little umbrellas and stuff. I was looking at it and I was like, wow, like the costumes and like the lighting and the production design seem like really spot on. Like it just like, how sometimes you watch a movie in the 80s or 90s and it's about something decades before, it's about the 30s or the 1800s or something, but it still feels like it's the 90s, you watch like I don't know, like Robin Hood, which Costner was in, or that like Three Musketeers movie or something from the 90s, and like it sort of just feels a little bit 90s. Like I thought this really felt like period, and I was like, damn, like this movie has a lot of like really great production design stuff working for it, and it's got David Mamet and Brian De Palma, and then the next scene when it started was that scene with Costner and Sean Connery on the bridge talking, and I was like, Jesus, Connery is amazing in this, and I was like, God, this is a really good movie, and since Sherry didn't watch it with me, which I felt like I was sparing her, the Connery the Costner, which she dislikes. She was like, so you thought it was a good movie, even with Kevin Costner? And I was like, you know what? Costner didn't have to do a lot. Like, he just had to be kind of a square-jawed do-gooder, and everybody else got to do the heavy lifting. And I think that's what made the movie good.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily bother me, him just being Costner. It was just, again, remarkable to see him being like, yep, that is Kevin Costner. Super young Kevin Costner, too. He is a handsome young man, that's for sure.
So I'll agree that Costner is very much Costner in most things I see him in. Now, that being said, he's in a lot of movies that I love. Field of Dreams is one of my favorite sports movies. That's, top 5 positioning there. And this movie I absolutely adore. I love The Untouchables. Again, top 5 crime movies of all time, in my opinion. You're probably right, but I can think of lots of actors like that. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen Nicolas Cage not be Nicolas Cage. And you could say he's a terrible actor, but you know what? I freaking love The Rock. He's great in it. It's not that the movie's great despite him. He's great in it. It's perfect. Is he any different than he is in every other movie he's in? No. Is Kevin Costner the same person in this as he is in Robin Hood, as he is in Field of Dreams? Probably. But you know what? Field of Dreams is great. That was, if you made Kevin Costner the main guy in Die Hard, would that work? No, it would not work, because he'd still be Kevin Costner, and that's not the right person for that. But in this movie, when he's supposed to be, like Paul said, playing the straight man, the 1920s, do-gooder cop, straight edge, won't take a drink, unlike everybody else who has depth and character around him. I mean, that's perfect. He's the G-man. He is the quintessential G-man. So yeah, I think we're going to be in the same boat as we were last time, where me and Paul are like, this is one of the greatest movies ever. I love The Thing. Love Untouchables. And Kris is like, this isn't my type of movie.
No, I thought it was fucking great.
Oh, okay, all right.
I really liked it. The only complaint I kind of have was I felt like it fell apart a little bit at the end for me. I feel like they just didn't stick the landing. Because I was genuinely into this the entire time up until I think it was the airport scene. The thing with the baby carriage was, I think,
the train station.
The train station, yeah. That the baby carriage was too much. I know it was an homage to that classic thing from the 30s, I think. It was just like, it was too much. It was too much focus on the baby carriage. It was too much slow motion. It was way too many shots of him looking over that railing down at the baby carriage. And like, I'm looking at this like, what is going on here? Are you going to go help her or not? Are you going to go help her? Are you looking at it? Is the point of this scene that he is looking at the carriage and is being distracted and he just doesn't see who he's supposed to see? Like what's going on? And then the whole shootout starts and it's like super slow motion. And it starts with the right amount of tension and it ends with the perfect amount of tension where Andy Garcia takes the shot. Like, that's great. It was great. But like all that in between with the slowly bouncing down the stairs and slowly dragging up the stairs, it was like, it was ridiculous. And then just kind of going from that to the court scene, it like, again, it just kind of felt like it is something about the ending of the movie just felt kind of messy to me. It didn't really stick with me. Like, I was pretty well riveted throughout the whole thing up to that point. Like, it was just the very end of the movie. It was like, it just didn't quite grab me. And movies tended to end a lot more abruptly back then. Like, movies just kind of stopped. Like, they finished telling their story and was like, the end. Yeah, you think about like the end of The Karate Kid. Like, that's it. He wins the tournament. Here's the credits. Like, that happens so much in older movies, especially from like the mid to late 80s, I think. And this, I kind of felt had a similar thing. Like, I guess I just wanted a little bit more out of it and it to feel a little bit more cohesive and I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Just that chunk of the end of the movie was like a bit much. And like where I didn't know how I was supposed to feel about him killing, I keep calling the guy John Bly because that's the character he played on Briscoe County Jr. But when the dude in the white suit where he threw him off the building, like, I really didn't know how I was supposed to feel about that.
Well,
like,
the guy did kill his friend, like
he did, and then he just like murdered him. And like there was a lot of this movie that was like, I'm not sure how I should feel about this. Like, Prohibition's bad. Like, these guys are. I don't want to be rooting for the cops in this. I don't want to be rooting for, De Niro either, but I don't really want to be rooting for the cops in this scenario. And then they're just like waltzing into the post office with a bunch of shotguns. Like, they are open carrying everyone. I guess that's just the way shit was back then. I mean, I don't know. I'm not from then, but wow, they had zero qualms about walking around with the most loaded guns imaginable. So you got they thought his kid was kidnapped. And he's just like, he's got the finger on the trigger, hugging the kid like super close. I'm like, dude, put the gun down, huh? Could you not just get away from the kid's head, please, for a minute?
So you got a lot there. About the ending stuff. You're right. 80s movies, there was lots of abrupt endings. But really, I think if you go back earlier in the 80s, you go back to like a lot of those black and white, at least a lot of the stuff I watched, it's black and white, a lot of the sci-fi and horror. That stuff, like, all of a sudden, the universal planet's up there and the plane's flying, like the end. You're like, wait, whoa, what just happened? They it wasn't like, at least in the 80s, they ended it and then instantly rolled the credits. I feel like in like the 60s, they would like be in the middle of ending it and just start rolling the credits. You're like, whoa, we didn't finish.
Yeah.
So, and I did realize that last night when I was watching it. I was like, you know what, because you know what, there was like, I think I was probably like an hour and a half in, and I looked at the timer on it or whatever, and I saw that there was a half hour left, and I was like, or maybe even 40 minutes left, and I was like, wait a second, we're about to do the Sean Connery scene, and then they do the train scene, and then they do the courtroom scene. How do we still have 40 minutes? And those are the only 3 scenes I can think of. And I understand what you're saying about the stairs and the train. It is very drawn out. It is paying homage to the older film. There's something to tip in your hat for the old people, for the ones that came before it. I get that. I feel like the Sean Connery scene was paced well. I feel like the train scene, I know, I do understand what you're saying, and now that you're saying it, I can kind of see it, but I think that slowing it down, they were trying to build that tension, and I get that, and then capping it off with that great Andy Garcia moment, I think it makes that moment better, because the whole scene up to that point is so drawn out, and then the bad guy is counting, he says 1, 2, and not only does he says, I'm only going to count to 5, which is a weird number. Like, everyone counts to 3. Why are you going to 5? This is weird. So he says 1, and then Costner's like, you got him, and Garcia's like, I got him. And then if they had let him say 2, and Costner had said, take him, that would have been abrupt, right? Because you're like, he was going to 5, right? You shot him early. But they just dragged everything out before it so much and made everything go so excruciatingly slow that would have made it seem really fast if he had gone after 2. But they didn't even go after 2. He started to say the word 2. It was like, 2, take him, boom, done. So I think by dragging everything out so much, it overly punctuated the abruptness of that maneuver, which, 1, is cool and badass and everybody loves that, but 2, the very next shot is Garcia's still got the gun pointed, and you see the bookkeeper start crying. And I think it really drove home the point of the horror to the average person. It's like, you thought the bad guys were dangerous, but the good guys will fucking kill you too. So you're screwed, buddy. Don't get me wrong. I have no sympathy for the bookkeeper. He's the bad guy, right? But it puts that guy in this position where he would testify against Al Capone, who he knows will beat someone to death with a baseball bat, because it's like, well, these fucking guys will kill me too, right? So I might as well testify. They got the gun pointed at me right now, which you could say is unjust or not right or whatever, but that doesn't matter. This is cool. But then after that, the very last scene I thought was unnecessary. I like that Andy Garcia got Connery's thing or whatever, but like after that courtroom scene, they could have just ended the movie there. There was like another 5-6 minutes of like him cleaning out his office. like what was that? Why was this here?
Well, you guys both just said a lot of things, and I think that honestly, I think that a lot of the stuff that you guys have as criticisms is the stuff that really worked for me. So Kris talked a little bit about throwing that one guy off the roof, the guy that killed Connery, and also
Again, that wasn't a complaint. That was a genuine, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel in this moment, which I thought was interesting. That wasn't meant to come off as like, this is stupid, I shouldn't feel this way. I thought it was an interesting scene because I really didn't know how I was supposed to feel about what he just did. Like, the movie seemed to be framing it like this was a badass moment where he just got revenge, but like, on the other side of it, everything up to this point has been such a thing about him not crossing that line of illegality, and he just straight up murdered the dude.
Well, I think for me it all boiled down to Connery, the Connery's character and the stuff that he said, and sort of the influence that he had over the group and the sacrifice that he made. Like, he had to struggle to stay alive, to then tell them, right? He had to tell them where
what train?
The train.
Bookie guy
right. He was like, he's getting on this train. The bookkeeper's
right,
getting
right,
on this
right.
train.
Like he Connery made it his mission to take this. It's weird that I keep saying Connery instead of the character's name, Malone. Made it his mission to make this plan succeed. And early on in the movie, like, before he signs on with them, he has to have that scene where he's like, what are you prepared to do? Like, not what's your plan, how far are you prepared to go, and what are you prepared to do? Because he's not going to play by the rules. There's so many iconic lines just in that scene. The whole thing about, if he pulls a knife, you pull a gun. If he puts one of your men in the hospital, put one of his in the morgue. And I think most of the movie, you're seeing Costner, do the straight laced thing and be the stand up guy. Even though some of this stuff felt like the Wild West when they're in the 20s, riding around with guns hanging out the window, or the 30s rather. But I think that moment was one of those, like, this is where I'm prepared to bend the rules so that we win. Here's the places where I have to get down and play dirty so that we come out on top of this. And then, the other thing is, like, I thought, I guess I thought the way the whole thing was framed, including the very end, because I think what you're forgetting, I think the last scene of the movie was somebody says to him, hey, prohibition has been repealed. Yeah. What are you going to do? And he goes, I guess I'll have a drink. I loved that was sort of a through line of the movie, that, like, he had to make a speech to the police officers and say, listen, I know this is a joke to you and a lot of you drink, but this is the law of the land and this is what we have to do if we're going to come out on top, or the accountant guy, taking a swig of the whiskey after, he like fired on that guy, and, like, you can see this was not his this was not where he came from in life, and the fact that, like, he's part of this, squad of lawmen, and that he just, like,
killed like 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, that it was like this rush that he was like, I'm gonna take a drink, and I love the whole way that all of the alcohol and prohibition stuff was framed in the movie, because I just think it is probably really accurate to what it was like.
Agreed.
Most of the cops in Chicago and New York in that time period were certainly Irish. That's that stereotype. It's a stereotype, but it's also a fact. Like, that job was, even to this day, it's heavily an Irish job in cities. And they were all drinking whiskey. That absolutely, when Connery's taking the whiskey bottle out of the stove, like, I had lots of family that was, alive during that time, and they were all drinking whiskey. That's how that was. I don't think I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters that Costner's stance at the end on whiskey or drinking rather is that, he's like, yeah, I'll have a drink. I think that was reiterating the point that it was just about following the rules. And I think maybe throwing the guy off the roof was important only because it starts to show you that bend in the character arc. Because I mean, the next scene in my head is way more questionable. Like throwing the guy off the roof, that seems more questionable, and maybe I'm messed up. But the next scene, he's blackmailing a judge, right? That seems way more questionable to me. Like, you can kill somebody who's trying to kill a cop, right? So he got to this guy after the cop was already killed, but he just admitted that he did it. So, like, should he do that? No. Is it wrong? Sure. It's probably way more wrong to blackmail a judge who didn't do anything wrong that you're aware of, right?
Wait,
like
I might have missed that. Did he blackmail the judge, or did he just take a gamble on who he thought that judge's name was in the ledger, and he turned out to be right? That's how I interpreted it.
That's how I read it. I read that he didn't necessarily. He knew that the judge was on the take. He just took a gamble on whether or not he was able to prove it.
What do you think blackmail is? Like, he basically said to the judge, "You're in the ledger. If you don't find a way," and Capone is bribed the jury. "If you don't fix this, I'm going to show everybody that you're in the ledger." So the judge did something that's completely illegal, by the way, and I'm sure this didn't happen in real life. But you can't just switch juries. Like, that's not legal. And Capone's jumping up and down about, this isn't right, this isn't right. So the only reason the judge did that in the movie is because Elliot Ness threatened to out him as corrupt. Now, it turns out Ness was right, and he was corrupt, because if he wasn't corrupt, he wouldn't have gone for that, right? He wouldn't have thought he was in the ledger, right? He would have been like, I'm not in the ledger. I've never taken a bribe in my life, right? Like, if you know you're in the clear, you're in the clear. So yeah, he took a gamble on whether or not that guy actually was in the ledger, but that's blackmail. Like, he told the judge, I'm going to out you if you don't fix this.
I don't really, maybe this is me being weird, but I don't really think that that's blackmail. I think that was sort of righting the mistake. Like, I think blackmail would be like, hey, I got these pictures of you and your wife doing weird freaky stuff with a sheep, like, I'm gonna show everybody. Like, I think him being on the take and then saying, I know you're on the take, like, is correcting the wrong that was already in play.
Oh, I agree. That doesn't make it not blackmail. Murder's murder, even when you're killing someone who's if you shoot whatever, I don't know, Hitler, right? And he's, whatever, you still murdered him. I'm not saying it's not right, but it's still murder, right? Like, we have definition. This is the lawyer in me coming out, right? So, like, was he justified in doing this blackmail? Sure, I'm on his side. Do it again, Sam. Let's run it back. But is it still blackmail? Yeah, it's still blackmail. He threatened. He was like, I'm going to expose you if you don't do this thing. That's blackmail. Justified? Sure. Righteous? Why not? I'm on board. Let's shoot Hitler. Fuck it.
Which is what made them the Untouchables. That they were prepared to do, that they were prepared to hit them where it hurts. That's
sure.
What
Oh, man. And that's just, when you said that they're the Untouchables, it reminded me of a couple of times where I was like sort of in my head making fun of the movie, and then the movie made the same joke and I realized it wasn't all that funny. Like with the little girl in the beginning with the bag, it's like, man, I wonder if that bag's probably got a bomb in it. She's gonna blow up. Oh shit. And then later when like they killed the guy in the elevator, I was just like, well, I guess they aren't so untouchable after all. And then like the dude had it written in blood on the wall. It's like, oh damn.
Yeah.
The movie's just going to outdark your jokes.
Yeah. It's just very, very well written movie there.
Yeah. What did he wrote Touchable in blood, right?
Touchable. Yeah. Yeah. I really liked it. I really liked it a lot. I thought it was a very good movie.
Yeah.
The other gripe I had besides the ending was the soundtrack. You had mentioned movies feeling like products of their time, or like they felt like 90s movies, like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and stuff like that. I think I also remarked at how what's the immersive the effect of it being a period piece was, especially considering when this movie was made. I thought that was very impressively done. The only portion that this movie really shows its age, I thought, was in the score that sounded very much 80s. Like it didn't sound as classical as it could have, and I think a lot of it had to do with the instruments that they chose to perform the score in a lot of those instances. I don't have any of them written down.
Once or twice,
it's struck me as a couple of times. It's like the music's not quite right here. The music's you're not matching what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, like with the acting and everything. It's just everything's spot on, except the music just feels a little off.
So I think you're probably right, because once or twice the music was so spot on that it caught my attention. So I actually had the opposite experience of you, but the fact that I noticed how spot on the music was at one or 2 points suggests to me that maybe at all the other points you're correct, and it was a little more 1980s sounding.
Mm-hmm.
There was the scene when Connery's getting shot up, and you've got it transposed with Capone's in the opera or whatever. So you've got opera music going, and then there's the scene right before the baseball bat, like when they're in the hotel. It's got like a 1920s style, like big band or jazz type music going, and the trombones a little bit over the top, but it very much drew me into the time period. It felt like, you should have flappers, going or whatever, right? So like those 2 times specifically, it really drew me into the time period. So the rest of the movie probably didn't with the score. And the opening score, though I love it, was very 1980s, almost into the 1990s. It felt like it just had that 80s, 90s kind of big budget summer blockbuster music feel, that opening bit, which I almost don't mean it. I don't mean it as a negative. I thought it was very predecessor to Terminator 2, like almost that dun 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 dun. Like it was very big and very. If I'm sitting in the movie theater watching a summer blockbuster, that's the music for it. But it wasn't on point for the period. It was more on point for being a summer blockbuster, which I assume this is what 1987 had to offer as a summer blockbuster. I mean, it's big action. It's a bunch of big stars. I don't actually know what month it came out, but
it was June.
Yeah, so that's I like the score, but you're right. Most of it probably didn't immerse you in the time period.
Really, I thought this was great. It was a really good movie. I'm probably not going to go back to it all that often because often do I have to rewatch things that aren't Star Wars. But I'm really glad I saw this. So this was a solid pick.
Paul had mentioned something about the Old West. You were like, it almost felt like the Old West, and like I don't know what time period it is that the crossover occurs. I'm going to guess it's around this time period, and maybe it's just the fact that there's cars instead of horses around, but. This is closer, this time period, like what is this, late 20s, early 30s? When was Prohibition? It was
the 30s.
It was the 30s? All right.
I think, yeah.
That's closer to the Old West than it is to today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you think of the Old West, you're talking about, like, what, the 1860s, the 1870s, right? Because you're not talking about 1776. We weren't out west when, or if we were, it certainly wasn't towns, right? That's George Washington time. When you're thinking of like Tombstone, right? You're talking about the late 1800s, right? This is the 1930s. This is 50 years after the Old West. We're 90 years after the 1930s.
Yeah.
Right? So like when we look at this and you're like, it almost felt like the Old West. Well, it was a hell of a lot closer to being the Old West than it was to being today. And I think just seeing cars makes everything feel modern. But I mean, cars had only been around, what? I think we invented the cars in like the early 1900s. I say we. I'm taking credit for it.
Yeah,
I was involved.
Years maybe. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, it very much was the Old West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote down a lot of good notes about this movie, but I wrote them down on the back of a paper plate that I ate a peanut butter sandwich off. So I don't have my notes. But yeah, I don't know. I guess trying to think back and remember some of the stuff I said. Well, so one thing I liked all the characters. I loved all the characters. I mean, I guess barring Costner, but you know, I think just like Sean said, like he did what he had to do in this, and it was what we needed for the movie. Like it was the right role for him. But the guy that played the accountant, was that guy's name Wallace? He one thing I loved about him was the way that they made the joke about it when he's first introduced to the team, you know, that he's like, oh yeah, the Treasury Department sent me down, you know, and Elliot Ness is
we're gonna get him on tax evasions. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, Elliot Ness is so happy to have, you know, somebody that the government sent, and it's like, oh, what do you do, you know, and then it's like, I'm an accountant, you know, and yeah, the whole thing about tax evasion, and that they all thought it was so laughable that then I was like, well, how are we going to get anybody on board with this? Like, if no one will take him seriously, how will this even happen? And I just sort of loved the slow progression of it. How Wallace was so thrilled to be part of the team and like part of these Untouchables, these, you know, gun-toting, you know, lawmen that could do whatever they want, you know, that like that his sort of persona shifted a little bit, but then how he would keep looking at the books and the numbers, and that it was almost like a curiosity to him, you know, like where he was like, if we could track him to any of this income, like that's the end for him, you know. It felt like he sort of said it so many times as a curiosity or a fascination that then the other characters started being like, yeah, we could do that, like that's a great idea.
So that's how they got him in real life. They put him in jail on tax evasion for I don't know how long, 10 years, 15 years, and he just died in jail. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I don't know if that was the first like time that they did that, and it may very well be. But I feel like in modern law enforcement, like that's how they get everybody anymore, right? I mean, you've got more accountants and like, I mean, Jacqueline works for the federal government, and that's what she does. Like, that's how they get people now, is just there's a paper trail, there's money. We don't need to prove that you sold drugs. If we can put you in jail for 15 years for tax evasion, we don't need, well, who cares, right? Yeah. Like, we got to the right end point. It's a huge part of law enforcement today. And it very well might be the first time it was used to circumvent the fact that you can't, we don't have any evidence that you beat a man to death with a baseball bat, but oh well, we'll put you in jail on some nonsense and who cares anymore, right? So if in fact that was the first time, that guy deserves a lot of credit for just thinking outside the box and being like, well, we'll just do it this way. Fuck it.
The other character, I mean, like I said, I thought all the characters were great, but you know, De Niro as Capone, it did make me curious a little bit about the real person, you know, the real man of Al Capone, and like what he was like, and like, you know, how he got away with stuff, because I think the thing that impressed me about the writing and the directing and De Niro's performance is like how smart and I guess tactical Capone was. I guess I won't relate him to other politician types of today, you know, because I don't want to get into a whole debate about, you know, some of the folks that are in power and the stupid things that are said and done, but like it just seemed like Capone was like the master of spin. You know what I mean? That like they would say something to him, you know, hey, what do you think about this? Or did you really do this? And that like he was really good at sort of the sleight of hand and going like, that's not what we're talking about. Look over here, you know, like this is the real thing, and like just completely detracting from like the giant crime that he just committed, you know. Like I thought De Niro was amazing. Like I thought he was really compelling, and the writing and the character just seemed fascinating to me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that
Yeah.
completely.
So you know,
I really liked Sean Connery too. And just before I forget, was there a scene? So they were all like, it was like they were waiting for something, like staking out something, and I swear Sean Connery was just like peeling into a sausage like it was an apple.
Yeah, that was when they were in Canada, right?
yeah, he was eating something. Was it a sausage?
I don't know. I looked at it for a second. It's like, that's not a fruit. I'm pretty sure that's just like a salami. Like, is he just going to town on a salami? I have to find that scene now.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I didn't realize what he was eating. That's funny if he was just like, yeah, that's what I eat. You know what we didn't talk about at all is that the Untouchables went on to be a TV series. And you know who played Sean Connery's role in the TV series?
Who?
I don't.
The guy who was in Indiana Jones and King Solomon's Mines, and I can't think of the guy's name.
John Rhys Davies?
Yes.
Oh, fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah. 93, there was an Untouchables TV series, and John Rhys Davies plays the Sean Connery bit.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I watched that as a kid too. It was good stuff. Nah, probably not. I mean, I haven't watched it since. It was probably terrible.
Oh, sorry. This has to do with Connery. I mean, I guess I'll echo what everyone else said, and just while I'm talking about how great all the characters were. Yeah, Connery's amazing. Andy Garcia was amazing. The scene with Connery and Andy Garcia was amazing, where they picked him out of the academy. You know, when they're like, well, if all the fruit on the tree is, or all the fruit in the barrel is spoiled, go to the tree, right? You know, and like I don't know if the character Malone really was like prejudice against Italian people or if it was just a big show in that scene, but like I don't know, that was a great scene. Yeah, I mean, Andy Garcia was, he didn't have as much to do with some of the other characters, but he was consistently great the whole time. I
was bummed in Connery's death scene where the guy showed up with the knife and he like walked him out of his house. He was the one I expected to just turn around and blow the guy away, because the dude was in his home with a knife. He had him dead to rights. I believe he could have shot that man legally based on that whole situation, and he didn't. He walked him outside, which is where he got killed. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you letting this guy go? Why aren't you at least taking the knife and detaining him, you fucking cop? What are you doing?
To this day, every time I watch that scene, I'm okay with Sean Connery getting shot. I'm good with it. It's all right, fine. You're going to get shot. But come on, man, just pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Take that guy out, for God's sake.
What are you doing? This guy just snuck up on you in your home to try to kill you.
Yeah, I
guess. The other thing, I have to say, the sheer brilliance of Sean Connery's plan to blow the head off of that corpse to scare that other guy was such a ballsy play. I loved that.
And you know what? Yeah. Every time I watch that scene, I wonder, did the Canadian cop know the guy was already dead? Because then he's like, I don't approve of your methods. Was that, I think what you did is despicable because you like shot a corpse and scared the shit out of this other guy? Like, you shouldn't be mutilating corpses. That's kind of on the icky side of things. Or was he like, they just killed that fucking dude. I don't approve of that. Like,
I think it was the second. I think it was you just killed a guy, because I think the only people that know that that corpse is there is Connery and
Costner.
and Costner. I feel like Costner shot him on the steps there, and everybody else came in the other side of the cabin, and Connery was the only one that saw that guy died there.
You know what? I don't give a crap what those Canadian guys think. They jumped the gun on that whole bridge scene.
They certainly did.
They did. They knew what the plan was, and the guy was like, "We're going to follow this guy's plan." And then they got everything. They got all their ducks in a row. Everything is going fine. And then the Canadians just like, "Yeah, let's get them." What are you doing, jerks?
Yeah,
I tell you.
I like that some of these big action scenes and these big, these big moments were all sort of like done a little different stylistically. Like the, I know that we've already sort of picked apart the step sequence, the Odessa step sequence that was an homage to the Battleship Potemkin, and a bunch of other movies have referenced this too. Like there's been Hitchcock movies that have referenced that scene, the original scene, the Battleship Potemkin scene. There's Terry Gilliam's Brazil. There's a couple different movies that have had elements of that. And then of course, like if you want to get really meta, I guess, Untouchables paid homage to it, and then Naked Gun 33 1/3 parodied the homage.
Yes, it did.
So it's a bunch of different levels of referencing that original thing. I think that part of that being so stylistic was that so many different things in the movie were. Like, I thought the scene was really heightened before Connery was killed, where you see the point of view shot of the guy like sneaking in his window and like going through the hallways, and it's all the POV camera shot, and the like, that Connery has his gun in that record player because that was set up at the beginning of the movie. So then when you see him over there, you're like, oh shit, what's gonna happen. But I don't know. I thought it was really heightened the way that it was all point of view camera shot.
My bet is for someone like Kris, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kris caught that. I don't think I did the first time I watched it. While they do set that up at the beginning, right, to kind of, they're not pulling a fast one on you. They're not pulling shenanigans. Like, it's legit. When you're watching that, it is a heightened scene. And I think at least the first time I saw this movie, I forgot that it was there. So like,
I did too.
Right. You're in the moment. So when he swings around with that shotgun, you've been doing this whole scene POV. All of a sudden, Sean Connery's just spun around with a shotgun on you. And you're like, oh shit, I thought I was the aggressor. Right. And you're not. You are the bitch in this scenario.
That's why it was so supremely disappointing when he doesn't kill that dude.
Yeah.
And then he goes outside and gets killed. It's like, no. Oh, this was such a great moment. Like, the whole time that POV is going on, I'm like, all right, movie, there's no way this guy's sneaking up on him. Like, Sean Connery's got to know he's there. And it just felt so good when he turned around. And, like, that guy looked like he was pooping his pants. And it was wonderful. And then I was so sad when he went outside and got blown away by John Bly.
And it was a really bold play by that guy. Like, it was clearly a setup. Like, that was their plan. But it's like, how did he know Connery wasn't going to blow him away?
It really defies all logic that he didn't just blow him away. So, yeah, it's a pretty big gamble.
The other thing Paul just said, you said this is based on the writings of Eliot Ness earlier, right? Like, this is taken from, like, his memoirs or something?
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah,
I
said that in the intro. Yeah, it's based off of the book that he wrote with somebody else about his life.
Right. So when Paul just said that, like, each of the set pieces, each of the big scenes had such a different feel to them, I think it's probably because they're based on these. Again, any movie based on true stories is half, they're 90% bullshit, but. That's probably why each one has such a different feel. My guess is there was some sort of raid where the Canadians went early because it's just such a random thing. Like, it doesn't progress the plot. It doesn't make you hate Capone more or like Elliot Ness more. So the fact that the Canadians just went early, that's like a real life thing, I think. That's like they had a thing and the Canadians went early, and that ended up in Elliot Ness's book. And when they're planning each of these scenes, they're based on these real life events that, real life takes different turns. Random mass Canadian guys decide to go early. You get a bad tip and you bust open a bunch of crates that don't have whiskey in it, and that's probably why each of these bigger moments have a different feel.
Well, I'm wrapped up. I don't know I don't have anything else to say.
I think I am too. The writing was amazing. I dare say in this day and age, David Mamet probably is not the most popular name, but I think for this movie that was made in '87, this was.
I don't know why you're laughing there. Like, what happened?
I don't know that anything specific happened. It's just like a lot of his work is kind of like, toxic masculinity. It's, it's dudes doing dude things, being dudes.
And you see, when Kris said that, all I could think was like, I think that's a famous playwrighty guy. I guess that's why the dialogue's good. You got like a famous playwright doing a movie.
I think in the current, social and political landscape, people are like, these aren't the stories we want to be telling. And he's kind of like, fuck you, this is me, this is what I do, I'll never change, so currently he's not the most popular guy, but I don't know, at the time this was probably a great project for him and the right choice for this movie.
All right, so should we talk about what's our next letter? Oh wait, in case anybody missed it, we were all giving this the thumbs up. We all think you should watch it.
Oh,
yes,
definitely.
This is a big thumbs up.
Yeah.
Definitely watch this movie if you haven't seen it already, like me. All right, well, I guess it is time for our votes. We've all got our V picks, which V was Slim Pickens. So I guess let's see what we all came up with. Who wants to go first? I
actually came up with a backup because V is Slim Pickens, but I have a backup, so I don't want to go first.
I'll go first if you want. I have no skin in the game with this. I don't know if this is a good movie. I don't know if it's a bad movie. I don't really know anything about it. I know that it's a movie that's like Freaky Friday, but with guys instead of girls. And I do know that this movie starts with a V. So the movie's called Vice Versa, or maybe it's Vice Versa. I'm not sure which, but I have it on good authority that it starts with a V.
Okay. Never heard of it.
Does it have somebody from Friends or somebody from The State in it?
I think it has Judge Reinhold in it.
Oh, and the Honorable Judge Reinhold.
Let me look. Hang on.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage.
Fred Savage.
Yeah. All right.
So there you go. There your that's your Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, or whatever you want to equate it to with Freaky Friday. Mm-hmm. Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage.
Love it.
Wowzers. All right, I guess I'll go next. This is a movie that I don't want to see so much as I want to be able to have seen. I watched the first one and I thought was entirely unremarkable. Maybe it's because I saw it when I had COVID. But my pick is Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Because I haven't seen it. I heard it was hilariously stupid and kind of fun. And I like stupid and kind of fun. And I don't know. It seems like the kind of thing I should see. But I have yet to find an excuse to watch it.
So I have seen that, and you've seen all the other Marvel stuff?
I don't know about all the other Marvel stuff. I've seen everything that's officially part of the MCU, I guess technically, except this, and I didn't see Morbius, but I'm not sure Morbius counts.
God.
Oh man, if we end up picking that movie, Venom, I want to at least talk for like 10 minutes about Morbius.
I got things to say about both of those. All right. So it's so close. It's so close. All right. So nobody picked my first pick. So I was excited to see this movie, but I didn't have an opportunity to see it until it was no longer appropriate to see it. And then I was like, I guess I got to wait a whole year.
I think I know what you're picking for.
I didn't want to wait a whole year, so this is my excuse not to wait a year, is Violent Night. I haven't seen it. It could be amazing. It could be trash. I don't know. But
I have heard it was great, and that was exactly what Karen and I thought. We were scrolling through V movies, and Karen's like, this would be a good excuse to finally watch Violent Night, because we were going to hold off until next Christmas, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I didn't want to wait.
You're suggesting you can only watch a Christmas-themed movie at Christmas?
It felt appropriate.
It's just kind of my personal hang-up. I tend to not watch Christmas stuff outside of Christmas season.
Yeah, me too.
Or listen to Christmas music or anything outside of it, but I'll make an exception.
Well, are we allowed to talk about a Christmas-themed movie outside of Christmas? I mean, next month it'll be March. Like, it'll really not be Christmas.
This is my excuse. This was that, and there wasn't a lot of V movies that I was interested in watching. But I was like, you know what? This is I don't, because I was sad I had to wait a whole year, and this seems like an excuse to not wait a whole year because it's V. I picked this movie. You shut up. Right? Oh shit! We got to do the texty thing. If one of you picked that, my backup was Vanilla Sky, because I feel like people say good things about it, and I only saw it once, like 2 decades ago, and did not like it. And I keep thinking that maybe I missed it. Like maybe I just didn't get it.
As you go into the text chat, you'll see that I posted a screenshot from the movie that is absolutely a sausage. He picks up a freaking summer sausage and just carves into it like an apple. It's amazing.
Man's my hero. I like to believe that was just, Sean Connery being Sean Connery, had nothing to do with the character. He brought the sausage to the set that day. He was like, I'm eating this while we're filming. They're like, I think we're supposed to be like, going with the script. He's like, I'm doing this.
I'm hungry. This is what I'm eating.
This is my sausage. I brought the sausage from home. You won't stop me from eating the sausage. It's my sausage.
I like to believe that's how it went. Do you ever hear the story about him with the serial murderer?
What?
No.
What are you talking about?
I can keep it short. I can do this. I can keep it pretty short. So there was this some sort of murder situation where like this guy who had killed several people and he was like a mobstery guy, and he was dating some girl. I'm messing this up at least 30%, but we're going to go with it. He was dating some actress who was in a movie with Connery. And the guy was kind of crazy because he was, he killed some people and he was a mobbery guy. And he came to the set one day and like he was being all crazy and he hit the girl and like he was like a known mobster. And Sean Connery went up and just like beat him up and was like, you don't hit a woman with a closed fist. Which seems both like
questionable,
right? You're like, kind of like you're glad. You're like, well, nobody else was stopping this guy from hitting this girl, so you want to like be like, good job, Sean Connery. And then he tosses in closed fist, and you're like, I don't know if he's the good guy or the bad guy in this scenario here. It's a real big question mark at that point. You're like, oh.
Equal parts valiant and abusive.
Right, it's like that doesn't feel so good, but you certainly can't root against him at that point. I don't know. But yeah, it turns out that guy was like he'd killed, to be a serial murderer, you just got to kill 3 people on 3 different occasions, and you're technically a serial murderer.
Just
right. Yeah. And then I think that girl ended up killing that guy, like later on down the road, like. He came back or something and she shot him. But then it was kind of questionable because I think maybe the bullet went into his back, and it's like, I don't think this was self-defense. There's a whole thing. All right, let's vote. 3, 2, 1, fight. Oh, Sean wins this one.
All right. Well, we're going to watch Violent Night. Christmas in March.
It's about time you had a win, Sean.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
You were due for one.
I'm winning B. Whether you vote for Big Trouble in Little China or not, that's what we're watching for B.
We're just doing that. We're not going to, I don't even think we're going to vote on B. I think we're just going to watch Big Trouble in Little China when we get back to B.
That's right. Can't believe I missed that the first time.
We got to finish the alphabet. I think it's going to be really hard to not just want to rush in and start over again with, with Ant-Man coming up, and, we're already psyched for B, and, we got to have our Creed-a-thon, like... I feel like feel like the beginning of the alphabet is so enticing right now. How do we finish?
It's very front loaded. And you know what? If you thought V was tough, wait till we get to X. Because, by God, I think we're all going to pick the same movie, right? We're all just going to pick X-Files, right? We're just going to watch that, be done with it.
Which one?
The movie. There's only one. Was there two movies?
There's two
there
movies.
was two movies.
It's two movies.
That's right. The second movie just felt like a long episode. The first one felt like a movie.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that one in the theaters.
Which don't get me
was a good
wrong,
time.
I enjoyed the second one because it had been like the show had been off for a while, so it was like, you know, you'd gone like 2 or 3 years without a new episode, and you were like, here's a new episode. Thank you. But it just felt like an episode.
All right, Killer, save it for
I think
X.
I've got my X pick. I've got my X pick already figured out, and I've definitely got my W pick figured out.
I got the rest of the alphabet planned.
Do you? Oh, God,
Yeah.
I'm way behind. And you know what, Paul? I'm going to say it now. Fast and Furious X is not an X movie. I understand there's an X in it, but it's not.
That's what you think.
All right, well, we're going to be watching Violent Night, which I'm pretty freaking excited about. That's an excellent pick for our next episode, and that is going to do it for us. Theater Near You is a part of the Geekade Podcast Network. If you'd like to get in touch with us to share your comments, movie suggestions, or whatever, you can send us an email at mail@geekade.com. We can also be found on most social media outlets and the official Geekade Discord server, all of which can be found in our show notes. If you'd like early access to this podcast and several others on the Geekade Podcast Network, check out the Geekade Patreon, linked to in the show notes. It helps keep this show running and our site shiny and clean. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time in a theater near you.
Eskimo kiss Paul. Butterfly kiss Paul.
We'll see you next time on Theater Near You.
Kris, are you still there? You went too. That was just me. What should I be? There's so many sides to me. Doodle-doo, doodle-doo. I could be an astronaut, a robot, hobo, a clown, or an alien creature going out on the town. What should I be? It's all up to me. What should I be? Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do. That's a little gift for Kris later on.